Russia claims it has agreed to begin talks with the US early next year to discuss Moscow's demands for security guarantees in Europe, including a ban on Ukraine's entrance into the NATO military alliance. If confirmed, the talks would begin a contentious effort to avert a Russian offensive in Ukraine. Joining me now live is Professor of Political Science at the University of California, Paul Danieri. Paul, thank you so much for joining us. Firstly, can you explain to us how the conflict got to this point?
Yeah. Russia has sought to control Ukraine for centuries and did control much of Ukraine for many years. But this really starts in 1991 when the Soviet Union collapses and Ukraine becomes independent. And much of the Russian elite has never accepted this and has sought to reverse it and assumed that Ukraine naturally would want to come back to Russia. But especially as Russia has become more authoritarian, Ukraine and Ukrainians have seen their future with Western Europe, not with Russia. So over the years, Russia used more coercive measures to bring Ukraine back in, culminating with, of course, seizing Ukrainian territory in 2014. But the harder Russia has tried to pressure Ukraine back in, the more Ukrainians have said, we're scared of you, right? We want to go the other way. To the point where Ukraine is really begging now for NATO membership, which it didn't used to be interested in, or at least the population in general didn't. And so that's where this conversation is now, is Russia now threatening, if we can't get you to come back peacefully, we might just conquer the country.
So how concerned would the US be about the rising tensions?
I think the US is very concerned because the prospect is for a major land warfare in Europe with all of the consequences that would entail. The potential to draw in NATO allies who border on Ukraine, potentially a massive refugee flows to Western Europe. It would a war, an all-out war, would be disastrous, really for everybody involved.
What form could a Russian attack take?
There's a lot of discussion about this, but what we know is that they've positioned over 100,000 troops with all of the support they need around Ukraine's borders. So what was being talked about is a sort of 1930s, 40s style blitzkrieg with tanks, armor, supported by a substantial amount of air superiority, backed by cyber attacks, and maybe justified by some concocted crisis.
So what do you think happens next? Russian President Vladimir Putin has cautiously said that he might engage in talks with the US. How likely would that be?
Well, I think the talks are likely to happen. And what we're going to find out, and this is what there's a lot of speculation about in the analytical community, is Putin really getting ready to invade Ukraine? And most of the military analysts believe that the best time to do that would be January, February, when the terrain freezes and is better for tank activity. Or has this been part of a bargaining plea all along? In many respects, Putin still comes from the Soviet legacy, in which a sort of standard tactic is you threaten to do something bad, and then in order to avert a crisis that you created, you try to extract concessions from the other side. So this idea, for example, of we've created a crisis and now you should, as a way of getting us to not invade Ukraine, should make these commitments that we want you to make that are really counter to your values. That seems to be what's going on here.
A contentious situation. Paul Danieri, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.